Welcome to I Married a Melchizedek, lucky episode number 7, where we discuss magical and very real Melchizedek, wild card of the universe like things, with Hazel Davies, Headmaster Unity Bubble Facilitator, who shares extremely valuable information learned and experiences gained during her 18-plus year relationship with Jonathan C.R. Davies, her Melchizedek hubby. I'm your host, Renata Duma. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified immediately when another episode of I Married a Melchizedek airs. Links to all I Married a Melchizedek shows will also be listed on the Unity Bubble website at unitybubble.com. For now, if you're not familiar with the Unity Bubble living process as we slowly transition the name, I strongly encourage you to do so, as it is truly one of the greatest energetic gifts to humanity since the Law of One. And now, once again, without further ado, here's Hazel. Hazel, welcome once again to your show. How are you? And how are you handling May eclipse mayhem so far?
Oh, blah, 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 blah. Does that say it all?
Yeah, well, we've come to the end of our show, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, exactly.
It's confusing times. It really is, and sometimes really hard to keep one centered. But I'm doing my best, as I'm sure everybody else is too, and we just keep going. Because what else can we do?
Well, yeah, and no matter what's going on around us, exactly. We have to stay informed, but at the same time, not let. And yes, it does affect us. We can't say that it doesn't, even physically. However, like you said, we just go okay, and just keep doing your own good thing. Right? Just keep doing
that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line, is to do your own work.
That's it. That's very much a motto of the bubble process too, of Unity. Yeah. So let's get right into it and continue on our discussion on the Unity living transmissions. So let's talk a little bit about breaking the bonds as it applies to changing energetic patterning and changing habits. What's the focus of this transmission, and what's the difference between energetic patterning and habits? Over to you.
Okay. So the breaking the bonds transmission, it came about because people were having real challenges with limitation, with feeling limited, feeling restricted, feeling that they couldn't follow their own path, and what was stopping all that. So it was a question of cutting cords or breaking the ties. We call it breaking the bonds. And that transmission specifically allows you to release something or give it to the bubble, surrender it to the bubble, when you find out a particular issue that you're feeling restricted by. So restriction would be the key word when we talk about breaking the bonds. As with the flow, it was resistance. So the key word for breaking the bonds is restriction. So when one works through a lot of the challenges and break those ties, it leads naturally into abundance, because that is what is stopping the lack. We have abundance, but when we have these other issues that are placed over the top, it puts blocks in the way that we experience our life, because either we don't feel worthy, or we're not good enough, or there's fear, or any of those multitude of issues. So when the difference between the energetic repatterning, which is what the transmissions do, they're specifically designed for that, whatever that challenge is. So you can change the energetic patterning by that, and then you're left with the habits. Now habits are actually relatively easy to change. Now, the example I often share is, okay, every morning I have coffee, and then I decide that's my habit. My habit is I'm going to have coffee with my breakfast. And then I decide, maybe coffee is not the greatest thing. I think I'm going to have green tea, So the first day is like, oh, I'm really missing my coffee, but after, I think it takes 28 days, they say, to change a habit. Mm-hmm. So by the end of that 28 days, I really like this green tea, so you've, not that I would.
It would take me a heck of a lot longer than 28 days. It just smells like old socks to me in a barrel.
I know. Yeah.
Sorry. No.
But you see, you have the choice. You have the choice if that is your habit, and if that's what you desire, then that's what will work out for you. So that's the difference. Is we can do all these energetic repatternings, but if you still have the habit pattern, the ruts run deep. So you're left with the habit pattern, and then you have a choice. Do you want to do the new way or not? It's always a choice. It's always a choice.
Right. And in your experience, because in mine, I have seen breaking the bonds take effect very differently in different people. Is that your experience too?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, because we all have our own specific, we really set ourselves up. We really do. We come into this life, this present life, with particular things that we want to either experience or to lessons to be learned, all those things. And then we organize our life around that. So we bring in, we get born to the parents that are going to, give us some of those lessons. And we bring in by resonance, because we have that desire, by resonance, we bring into our movie all the people and the situations that are going to help us to get the desired lesson or experience.
Exactly.
So we can point the finger at all kinds of things, but really we've set ourselves up until we can get to that point of, this is what this is about, and I've had enough of that. And that's how the bubble will help you to help one to get through these issues.
Right. Exactly. And which leads me into last week. You were kind enough to help me nail down my approach with a client who was going to be actually breaking the bonds. And I asked you if the sub issue being played out by my client was in a whole separate category, because it's a pretty common sub issue that most people have. And you said individuals come in with the susceptibility to the possibility of and you just kept talking, right? And I went, oh boy. And when we finished our conversation, I went, hold the phone. What did you say? What was that? And I was scribbling. So I went back and I went, what the heck is the susceptibility of the, okay, well, over to you.
Well, sometimes these words come out, and I don't really know that they're going to come out the way that they do. So it's as much of a surprise for me, and when you said, I thought, oh yeah, I did say that. I don't know what that's about. So we're all learning, we're all learning. So susceptibility to the possibility. Mm-hmm. So what I was saying was, when you come in with the desire or to learn certain lessons or experiences, you come in with the so if you're going to talk about physical conditions, you're going to be born into a family, and we can point the finger and say, oh, it's in the genes. It's that particular challenge. If it's some kind of dysfunction, it's in the genes, and we kind of point it back that's why we have it. It's not really like that, because you have set yourself up, as I was saying, to come in and experience that.
Right.
So we can say it's in the genes. So you come in with that possibility, or the susceptibility to a condition or a weakness. Let's say a particular weakness of the body or of the emotional field to carry out that experience.
Exactly.
So then you're susceptible to the possibility. Doesn't mean that it is going to happen, but the chances are probably more.
Yeah.
Because you set yourself up to have that.
Right. Well, it's kind of like you choose the parents, right? And the parents have precluded sort of behavioral patterns or genetic makeup.
Yeah.
Right. So it's exactly what you're saying, and it's brilliant because I never thought of it that way. But yeah, you're susceptible to it. Doesn't mean that it's actually going to manifest, because once you come to these, you have free will, so you can say, "Oh no, I'm not interested in that anymore."
Or I got that lesson already.
Or I got that. Thanks, I'm done. Yeah, exactly. Isn't that fascinating? Well,
yeah, it's brilliant. It's entirely brilliant. As crazy as it is, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
And nerve-wracking, yeah, but that's okay. That's fine. So, which leads me to the next question. I had a lot of questions for you this week, didn't I? I was watching somebody that I respect very much, James Gilliland, and I've been to the East Eddy Ranch, and I've actually been on his radio show. It's called As You Wish Talk Radio. And a few days ago, and his show was about NDEs, or near-death experiences. And he also talked about, the secret to success sort of thing is to keep one's vibration so high that it doesn't become co-opted in the tunnel as we transition out of a physical body. And of course, I immediately started to wonder about the bubble and whether or not it continues to function after we pass. And if it does that become a free will question? So what does free will really mean in this instance? So it's a multiple layered question, but
simply speaking, free will means that you have choice. And it's you always have choice. Now the bubble will continue through this life and going through the vortex or the tunnel. What you put attention on is going to determine your experience. So just because you have a bubble, whether you're incarnate now or going through the transitional phase or after, it's always about where do you put your attention. That is what it's going to come back to you. It's the law of the harvest. If you plant corn, you're not going to get beetroot.
Right. We were talking about borscht before we started. That's where you got.
So you're going to get back the same thing that you put out.
Right.
Only by the law of the harvest, you get it 10 times over.
Right.
And so going down that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, going down in the transitional phase, going down the tunnel or the vortex, the bubble will still be there. Now, whether you use it or not, whether you, because if you've had the bubble and you've done your work, you would be in a place of unconditional love and peace and harmony going down the tunnel. Now, if you haven't done your work, then you're going to come possibly, maybe not always, but possibly there would be some fears. There would be some judgments. Then there's self-judgments, of course. It's not, it's nowhere else, not coming from anywhere else. So the bubble, because the bubble is an 8th dimensional space, transitional or a transformational vehicle, it is created beyond time and space. So it's not limited to being in this experience of 3D or lower 4th D, wherever we are.
Exactly.
So yes, to answer your question, yes, the bubble will still be there if one chooses to use it. And it has that protective shell, so that even wherever they are, wherever a person is, whether they're incarnate, whether they're going down the vortex tunnel or afterwards, they will still have the protection of the bubble. Now, just because you have the protection doesn't mean that if you choose, you can invite in lower frequencies. That's your choice. That's free will. So it doesn't negate that. But, who would want to, maybe for some particular experience? I don't know. I wouldn't be inviting them in. But one, I'm not going there.
No.
But one, I'm saying one could.
Right.
It doesn't preclude. It doesn't so it doesn't preclude that if that's your choice.
Right. Well, it's like when we were chatting, and I got some recall afterwards, but the vision that sort of was given to me when we were discussing, the free will aspect. Well, you've got the bubble, so it's kind of like, I was shown a feast, a table that's spread with a feast, right?
Yeah.
And you've been invited to the party, right? Yeah. And either you come to the party and you partake of the food, right? So that's your free will. And if you want to continue to partake of the food or to stay at the party, as an example, then yeah, you're invited and you have that possibility. But if you at any point in time choose not to partake, even if people have the bubble, and I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she said, "Oh yeah, Mom," I'm like, "Well, you can release that to your bubble." She said, "Oh, Mommy, I keep forgetting I have a bubble."
I know. Well, it's like the clock on the wall. If you don't use it, if you don't engage with it, it'll still be there. Yeah. But unless you want to know the time, you're not going to look at the clock. So,
yes.
It's, but this is a free will universe. This is the directive of this universe. There are other universes that don't have that. But specifically, this universe is a free will universe, which is the ability to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the egoic self, it's the personality self that gets to choose.
Yeah.
Now the soul, or the high self, they don't choose. They can direct. They can bring in experiences and all that, but they don't make the choice. It's the being that is incarnate in a body, the ego self, which I think the ego is misunderstood. Jonathan's book on his talk on the ego, friend or foe, is very enlightening about and the joining together. See, the joining together of the egoic self, with the personality, the small self, with the soul aspect. So, and that's a lot of the work that we do. We become, that becomes a new being after you've done. See, the soul doesn't want to come down. If you're having an experience with lower frequencies, the soul's not interested in that. So it doesn't come close. As Jonathan would say, well, the soul doesn't want to, come into a in November when it's freezing cold and you're barefoot.
Exactly.
So the soul will not come down. So, but when you're in alignment with the soul is like, oh, this is good. I like this. So the joining together of the egoic self and the soul happens. And I remember getting my first experience of that total connection. We were sitting on the back of the motorbike, and I wonder what my soul thinks to this. I was going through that quite a bit, and the wind's in my face, and it's a beautiful day, and Jonathan's driving along, and I'm just sitting there, and whoosh, all of a sudden, I was my soul. It was immediate. It was just, and of course, the shock of it. Well, it wasn't a shock, but it was a shock. I almost fell off.
Wow.
And then after that, it was very easy for me to connect, and more. So they used to say that really the soul connection cannot be more than about, I think they said about 80% or something, because if it got too much, you would not be interested in maintaining your physical body. You wouldn't have a shower, and you wouldn't eat, and you just, because the soul doesn't need that.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea to be, but I think things have advanced from that. I know that now I am very, very close to having a full, connection most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time.
Well, I hope that all of us are moving towards that as we, as we ascend, because that's.
Well, you have to give the ego a new job.
Yep.
The ego has, the ego was created to look after us with a physical body, with a, to keep us safe. But when that is not necessary anymore, you have to give the ego a new job.
I think this subject is so broad that it probably merits pushing it over to a future episode, because the Ego Friend or Foe is definitely a must read. And Jonathan actually did a series of videos, which I'm very painstakingly moving from the old website to our new website. So why don't we do that? And because that is a fascinating subject, and I think that one applies to anyone, whether you have a bubble or not. That's just a universal subject. So now for the fun part. So I'm still wrapping my head around the apple pie that appeared on that Jonathan manifested on the road. I can't even manifest my house keys. So yeah. You said something about a waterfall. Let's hear it.
Oh, that one. Oh, the waterfall. Yeah. Okay. So Jonathan, I was not present at this experience, but I was told it. Jonathan was with his boys, his 3 boys, and they were somewhere in Northern Ontario, just having a camping couple of days, and they were at a waterfall, and they were at the top of the waterfall, and there was stepping stones that you could get across from one side to the other. It's a large waterfall, it's about 60 feet apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and 2 of the boys jumped over and were fine, and then the other boy didn't want to. He was a little reticent to jumping. So Jonathan tried to step across the waterfall, and there was a rock in the middle that he tried to step on to help his others across, but he lost his footing. So, and then he got his legs stuck between 2 rocks. Oh. And then the power of the water took him down the waterfall. Well, and so this afterwards, he said, "Well," I said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "Well, I just kind of rolled myself up in a ball and surrendered." And he said, on the way down, I was saying, he used to call him Father, God, or whatever that. Oh, I thought you wanted me around here for a bit longer, but hey, if this is it, I'm fine with that. And he came down at the bottom of the waterfall just laughing. He thought this was the greatest thing out. He just thought so. And he didn't. The only scratch that he had on himself was from the first being stuck between the 2 rocks.
Oh wow!
So we went back afterwards, and he said, "I don't know how I did it." And so we looked at the waterfall, and the only way that he could have actually gone down that waterfall, there was no other way. He had to have passed through the rock. He had to have done. There was no other way that he could have come down. And I said, "Well, that looks like that's what happened." And he said, "Well, I just surrendered." So then that was a whole new lesson, if you will, of what does surrender mean? Because that's immediate and total surrender. Because there's no time to, I'll just ponder that one.
Yeah,
I'll go back and ponder that and then decide. No, this was like in the moment, total surrender, no fear, nothing. And that's how he would. That's how
amazing.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Padmasambhava and taking Rainbow Body and imprinting his hands and feet in stone, right?
Yeah.
So merging completely. Yeah. And so that had to be it. So
Jonathan would do it in a Melchizedek way,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, the Rainbow Body is, I think that's an ancient technique that's probably been around as long as.
Well, yeah, they go into a cave, right? And then the only way out is to go through the wall, and they have to merge with the energy of the rock.
Wow.
And there's a lot of skeletons in the rock because the fear comes up and
absolutely. Oh wow! I got goosebumps all.
Yeah, I won't be doing that anytime soon.
No. Well, Jonathan never ceased to amaze, didn't he? Well, I see we're once again getting close to the end of today's showtime. Tune in again with Hazel and myself in 2 Tuesdays on I Married a Melchizedek, when we not only get to learn more about the life of a great being, Jonathan C.R. Davies, and the vital legacy he left behind, but also Hazel's brilliant recollections thereof. We'll also explore more about the Unity Living transmissions and how they assist individuals, of course, in the most profound ways imaginable. Once again, I'm your host, Renata Duma, wishing you brilliant days ahead in the full flow of all creation, full of joy, health, true abundance, and positive outcomes from lots and lots of manifestation. And may the 2 upcoming eclipses be smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Hazel, for yet another wonderful show. We made it to episode 7.
Thank you so much, Renata.
With much love from Hazel and I to you till we meet again on the next wise and whimsical episode of I Married a Melchizedek. See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.